There's the Jeep I want to work on today. There's the Jeep I should be working on today. Here's the Jeep I have to work on today. So this is my girlfriend's 1995 Jeep Wrangler. She's had it about 7 years, drove it all through high school, and in that time killed 2 different 4-cylinder motors. But now it has an LS 5.3 liter and a automatic transmission. So this was swapped in by her father about a year ago, and she hasn't killed it yet. But what she has killed is both shock brackets snapped off the frame recently. So that's the shock. Unbolted it from the bottom already, but you can see the top just completely ripped off. So I'll crawl up under there and show you what we're dealing with. So it's kind of tough to see under here because this thing sits pretty low. But that is what remains of the shock bracket. So we have to cut all along here and even cut along the top of the frame to go ahead and get that bracket off. Right over here, you can see that shock's actually still in there and the bracket's hanging there. It's actually putting a dent in the floor. So I don't know how long back this thing actually broke off, but a little while ago. All right, we got the wheel popped off now and you can get a better view of what we're dealing with. So this side's really not that bad. I have to cut away all the top here. And then the front, like I showed you. But this other side has all of the brake, and I'm assuming the fuel lines there as well. So that's going to be a real pain to have to deal with those. But the bracket itself looks like it'll be easier to cut off, which is nice. So I'm going to figure out how to remove all this stuff, get it up out of the way, and see what we can do. All right, so for removal, we are going to use my Hypertherm PowerMax 45, but we're going to use it in a way that I don't think a lot of people use their plasma cutter, and that'll be on the gouging function, which on mine happens to be the bottom, which means we need to change our consumables to a slightly different set. So coming over here to our consumables package, you'll see this is the original consumables that came with my plasma for the PowerMax 45. You'll see it says gouging parts, which is just a very similar looking set of electrode and nozzle. And then the one main difference is this nozzle, I think that'd be a cone, sorry, is not a drag type like your standard. So this is a standard, very worn out drag type nozzle. This one is more of just a straight cone, and that's made for gouging. So I primarily have used this thing for gouging out cracks on heavy equipment before I had an air arc set up. But it does work very nicely for removing old parts like this that are welded on in a weird position that you can't really get a grinder on nicely. So we're going to start with this, but we will also go ahead and use cut-off wheels, die grinders, and probably hard stone wheels. So let's go ahead and get this thing hooked up to power and air and start cutting away. Another important note is right before I start cutting now, since we are using plasma cutting, I am going to go ahead and unhook the battery just to make sure we do not fry any computer or wiring on here. I pretty much do that anytime I'm welding or cutting on a truck, but some people argue that you really shouldn't have to. And then they even sell a system that clamps on and I think takes out any interference from the welder and is a much quicker and easier way than removing battery terminals, but they're rather expensive. So, all right, I'm gonna try my best to give you guys a good visual of what I'm doing here, but it's definitely a tight spot to work in. We're going to go ahead and clean up a ground for the plasma cutter using my flat wheel. And then I really should clean up the area I'm getting ready to cut and gouge, but we'll see if we can do it without it. Well, I'm not trying to destroy my camera today, so I ended up pulling you guys out of there. But got the plasma working again, and I've just been going kind of back and forth across, taking layers down slowly, and being very careful not to dig into the frame. That's the last thing I want to do. So I've got it pretty close down. I'm going to go ahead and chip a bunch of that out of there, And then we're going to start running a grinder across it and see how close we are. Alright, we got this side pretty much peeled up, and lo and behold, there's a nice big old rust hole in there we're going to have to fix. So now we need to crawl underneath, which will be the real fun part, and cut the front side. Alright, I got my respirator on, so you might not be able to hear me well, but ran the cutoff all along the bottom down there, and then drove the chisel in there, and we've just about got it popped up out of there. Make a few more hammer hits and we'll be good. Alright, so we got it pretty well cleaned up and the old bracket completely off. But you can see there's a nice little rust hole sitting right in there. And that is because these mounts are kind of designed poorly, where they make a perfect pocket for a bunch of junk to sit in there. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cut out a piece of plate and completely box this in and seal it all the way up, and then try and weld it all the way around. And then we will put a drain hole in the bottom just to let any moisture out, just to try and prevent this from happening again in another 30 years or so when this thing breaks off again. Also, while I'm doing it, I could probably get away with just doing that because we'll be welding in basically a new area, but I think I will go ahead and at least throw a piece of 3/16 plate on the top and the side, just to make me feel better about this. It would probably be fine, but while I'm in here, this is the best time to fix it. So let's go ahead and do some plasma cutting. All right, so we got both brackets here welded up to our right angle plates. Oh geez. So basically these plates are going to go down the frame, and that will take care of our rust hole for us and just generally brace everything up. And then we put this top plate on the bracket as well so that no moisture can get in there, no dirt, that sort of stuff will get in there. So it came out all right. I'm starting to run out of daylight, so I'm rushing a little bit, but I think they will work just fine. And they're going to be a lot stronger than the old ones. So let's go ahead and get them tacked into the Jeep. That's not going nowhere. Alright, well, I wouldn't say it's anything to write home about, but it's welded in there. Did some vertical ups on the edge, overhead here. And yeah, that's not going anywhere this time. I can promise that. Then out here, welded it flat all the way around. Pretty happy with that. I don't think we're going to have any problem with this in the future. That is way more welded on than the last one was, that's for sure. So I'm going to go ahead and flip around to the other side, and we'll get this thing all buttoned up. not as pretty, but got that side all finished up. So now we just got to reassemble everything and paint. All right, we're all finished up and on the test drive. We're up here above the Mississippi River, which is a beautiful little spot, but it might be a little windy for the video, so I do apologize. But just wanted to give you guys a quick little walk around. Now, this is not my car. This is my girlfriend's car. It's been her daily driver for about 5 years now. Started out with a 2.5 automatic, went through 2 motors, and then her father decided to go ahead and throw the LS53 in it, which fits perfectly in this thing. I think it's a 4L60E, and then it's got a Ford 88. One of the really cool things that he did on this, well, that's pretty much got a completely flat belly, aluminum skid plate, aluminum fuel tank skid plate, but you'll notice there's not much hanging down, which is really awesome. Overall, the Jeep is pretty stock looking appearance-wise. It's got a worn 8,000-pound winch on it, and a aftermarket bumper, and a slightly bigger tire. I think it's like a 31. The Jeep is a Rio Grande, which is pretty cool. So what that means is it has some really cool interior that you can't really tell because of these seat covers. And I mean, it's got a tan dash. They also swapped out all new gauges, which all fit really nicely. And overall, it's just a really nice little Jeep. While working on our spring hangers, I did notice there is some frame rust starting right down here. So in the next year or so, I expect to have to deal with that. And the body's not the cleanest, but it's definitely worth saving. These fenders, I think, are really the worst of it. So as of now, it's not completely rotted out, so I don't think it's worth trying to replace fenders and repaint it yet. But my girlfriend really does love this thing, so I think one day it'll get a complete refresh, body and frame wise. But until then, I'm going to keep on doing little repairs like that to try and keep this thing going and keep her happy. So thank you guys for watching, and please like and subscribe. Thank you.